Architecture is a varied and diverse profession. Creating and maintaining a successful practice within the industry brings its own unique challenges. When founding an architectural practice, there are many decisions to be made. Each must define what a successful business looks like and how they plan to achieve it. Ensuring a steady flow of work is the first priority, and whether small or large, all practices compete for work in a volatile environment. How does the size of the firm affect their ability to survive?
Architecture is a unique beast, covering the development of private dwellings to master planned cities. An architecture organisation will strive to create good design across all scales of the built environment. But how does the firm's size affect its ability to compete? Can a small and efficient firm compete with the size and strength of a large corporation? In order to survive, an architecture firm requires a strong business strategy guided by the values and goals of the practice. Each firm defines success in different ways. For some, success is profitability and dominance. Their strategy involves takeovers and continued corporate expansion. For others, it is about finding a niche, maintaining a moderate size to focus on consistency and stability. The goal for both is a strong and stable architecture business, yet the strategy for building that strength is different.
Business growth is often perceived as analogous to the pursuit of profit, but inevitably comes with a degree of risk. Growth or expansion is not a guarantee of increased profit, and the decision must surely come after a level of stability has already been achieved. Is growth necessary for success?
I wouldn't say it's fundamental to a company's success to have continued growth. Growth numbers-wise, numbers of staff, I think it's best to be done organically. I think to inflate a company rapidly, pulling staff in to take on projects is a bit of a risk, because once those projects are done, if you haven't got a strong marketing team pulling in future work, well then there's going to be a rapid decline in staff. The biggest responsibility of any director, manager, or even sole practitioner is ensuring that you can keep your staff employed, ensuring you can keep your staff.
In today's economic climate, maintaining stability can be a challenge in itself, before a business can even think about expanding. What strategies can help manage these influencing forces?
The goal was to try and find a way of stabilising, because we were taught at uni that there was a 7-year cycle. There'd be 2 or 3 years of good, and then 3 or 4 years of really ordinary activity in the construction industry. So I had always wanted to find a way of stabilising that so that we didn't have boom and bust situations. And I met a guy called Frank Stasiowski who said the only way to do that is to be geographically diverse.
And you've certainly gained yourself a reputation and gained yourself a little bit of security financially. Well then it's very smart to take a portion of that and develop another sector, because if that sector goes bad, what do you do then?
The diversity in the sectors is the other thing that sort of maintains stability. So we specifically tried to develop, I always had an interest in multi-res housing and urban design and master planning and hotels and resorts. Then Rob McRae had an interest in education, so Rob grew the education folio.
Both geographic and sector diversity plays a role in achieving stability, but how an organization approaches this growth plays a major role in their long-term success.
Sydney, we started from scratch, and it was a very, very difficult thing for the first 4 or 5 years. So in terms of ease, it's much easier to buy an merge an established practice with an existing practice, but the risks are that it doesn't work, and when it doesn't work, it doesn't go very well at all. We've had one of those.
Very interesting model, in my opinion. Now, I can't give you the full background because I don't know it myself, but from my understanding, when the company was bought out, when the prior company was bought out, what those individuals gain, I dare say, is security. It's a constant pay packet. They gain a resource hub from the parent company that's bought them out. You know, they gain an overdraft. You know, to develop this company, it's going to cost money. And another thing that an architectural firm will do if it's trying to get its foot in the door with something that it's not necessarily familiar with is to merge.
When we bought the architect studio in Darwin, that was with Peter Fletcher. Peter Fletcher had worked across Australia and had a well-established practice in the Northern Territory, and there are very few well-established practices in the Northern Territory with the experience to design in the tropics, and we literally have bought that experience, and it's carried on through Northern Territory. We want it to extend a little bit further south into the Perth regions, and that's starting to happen as well.
What you lose, your identity. You're no longer that previous company, you're this company, and there's a transition. It's not just going to be overnight, stop calling yourself this, call yourself that.
Mergers and takeovers are strategies for acquiring experience in new sectors, but these paths are not available to all businesses. Some practices, such as a sole trader, do not have the option of taking over others for a variety of possible reasons. In these cases, an alternative strategy is needed to work on jobs that would otherwise be too large or outside of their experience.
One of the reasons why I moved to the Sunshine Coast was not just for joy and pleasure, but for realizing that I was starting to severely damaging my health. I was suffering from hypertension while I was, in the so-called rat race in Brisbane, and the hypertension was developing to a stage that I ended up with an aortic rupture, emergency open heart surgery operation. It was life that taught me the lesson that taking on more and more work and being more and more busy and increasing your stress levels is not good for you. And here in the Sunshine Coast, I find myself walking the beach at least twice a week, doing yoga and meditation and trying to look after myself and keeping myself not too busy to suffer another heart attack or another stroke. I have situations where I had a much higher number of medium-sized projects than what I could handle in my practice, and rather than increasing the size of my staff, I was seeking to go into a networking relationship and seeking the cooperation of 2 or 3 other architects that I did work with. I worked in Brisbane together with Paul Fairweather, at the time a partner in Fairweather Proberts, Henk Mulder, and a number of other smaller to medium-sized practices. The way I worked together with the other architects was that we shared the fee for the project on a 50-50 basis. I retained the general design control and liaison with authorities, the client, the Department of Housing, and the builder.
A small architectural business may choose to limit its size for reasons such as health, risk, or capital expenditure, for example. But what about mid or large-scale firms? Are there circumstances in which capping growth would be beneficial at these levels?
I'd say yes. Yes, I've worked in firms which have wanted to position themselves just under being a medium-sized firm because they felt that once they went into that threshold, then things got a little bit complicated where they would have to have a permanent office manager, a permanent HR, and you putting on one extra staff would actually be putting on 4 extra staff to make that leap. And at that point then, higher profile jobs to actually keep these guys in. It was an active decision to probably cap where they wanted to be, which I think is probably a hard decision to make. I also think that it's probably a bad idea, again, to leap into a high profile project if you don't have the skill set, don't have the experience, and don't have the financial backing.
It's all well and good to pursue a merger or takeover as a means of business expansion, but without a continuous supply of new jobs, the means to fund any aspirations for growth will not exist. Marketing is a tool used by a business to get its name and identity into the marketplace.
If you want to be a bigger firm, you probably have to be very aggressive about winning jobs to keep these guys employed. And no company is going to be successful if it doesn't market itself to a certain degree. Reputation can only take you so far. Reputation is good for repeat business. Reputation might get you noticed with new clients, but unless you can sell yourself to those new clients, then you're not going to get that from the door.
In day one, I was the marketing person, I was the print boy, I was the drafter, I was everything. And you get to a stage where if you're going to compete with the larger firms, which to win projects of sort of $100 million plus, which is exciting scale of project, you need to have the marketing to compete with those other firms, because otherwise you fly under the radar continually and don't end up being known more than anything else.
I think within architecture, your reputation will take you places. The company's reputation will take you places. And I've worked for sole practitioners where marketing wasn't an issue because the reputation and the quality of their work was of such that kept them continuously employed, which then kept the team employed. But they were a small firm, and they were happy with that, or he was happy with that. So that's a small firm saying, look, I'm not going to do marketing. A medium firm or a large firm can't not do marketing. You will have to market, and you have to market aggressively if you want high-profile projects.
Architecture is not just about creating beautiful buildings, it is about creating a business. There are many items that need to be addressed: financial matters, staff direction, marketing, client relations, and the search for new work. For those that start a firm, there is only a 25% chance they will still be in business in 3 years' time. Careful planning is required. Business plans and goals need to be established. This is required whether you plan to remain small, in which case so will your projects. But if the plan is to tackle large projects, then a large firm, strategic business alliances, or joint ventures will be needed. Whatever is the case, of first importance is securing profitability before deciding to grow. While growth is not required to be successful, it is an industry headed toward increased firm size and consolidation. However, the larger the firm becomes, the director may need to devote all their time to running a business rather than designing buildings.
I'm working very hard at becoming an architect again. At the moment, I very much feel like a business person. Running an architectural business, that's my role at the moment. I want over the next 3 to 5 years to hand over that mantle and become an architect again. That's my goal and ambition, and it was it was the top of the list from the conference that we just had with all the studio managers, is how to do that.